stress. We've all got it. But how well do you manage it? So before we get into our main topic today, I'm just going to give an update. My name's Bruno Panucci. I've been doing a carnivore diet for about 13 or 14 months now, consistently, without a lick, taste, or bite of anything I wasn't supposed to have. Now, I was doing a lion diet, which is a more strict version of the carnivore diet, last fall into January 1st, and I'm doing that again this month. Now, I did have wings one day this month, and that's technically not on a lion diet, but I've also cut out sodium this month. And how do I feel cutting out sodium? That's a very important mineral. I feel fine, no problems. I haven't had any challenges with it, honestly. I was a little tired, maybe a little more tired than normal. I've gotten some eye gunk with it. I don't know why. That seems to be more managed now than in the first few days of cutting out salt. Now, why would I cut out salt? Well, I've cut out salt because I just want to see how my body responds to it. That being said, because I knew I was cutting salt out, added salt to my meat, and I love salt. I put a lot of salt in my meat, but I want to see how it affects my body. And I made sure to be on the lion diet this month because that way the red meat has more natural sodium in it. I'm probably meeting my basic level of sodium intake in a day because I do have about 4 or 5 pounds of minimum of meat in a day. So that being said, I'm not noticing too much of a challenge. I thought it would be really difficult. It's not too bad at all. Now, as far as the topic of stress goes, what do you do for stress? Everybody has stress. The question is, how well do you manage it? I have lots of clients. I'm a registered massage therapist, and I have lots of clients who turn around and say, yeah, they don't manage their stress really well. And I liken stress to a bathtub filling with water. We have one big pipe pushing water in our tub, and that represents stress. All the intake of water is stress in our lives. And we have one drain. So when everything's going well, the drain is draining all the water properly. And we live in this world, and there is going to be all types of different stresses around us, physical stresses, emotional stresses, and we want to make sure we're managing it. And when it starts to become ignored or just not managed very well, people end up just ignoring it. And what happens is that's like ignoring a drain that's clogging. My kitchen sink clogged this week, and I've been taking care of it, and getting parts has been a pain in the butt. It's not draining very well right now, and I'm in the process of replacing it. Stress is the same thing, but we can't replace ourselves. When our stress becomes overwhelming, it's because we have more than one faucet going into our tub. And more than one faucet means that there's one drain, there's 2 or 3 or 4 faucets, depending on the different areas of stress you have in your life, putting too much water in the tub. And that tub is gonna eventually get deeper and deeper with water, and it's gonna overflow. And we wanna put as many drains as there as possible. We wanna eliminate that water just as easily as it's coming in. We can't always manage the stress coming into our lives, but we can manage how we deal with it. And I always recommend to all my clients, I've been saying this for about 20 years, over 20 years to my clients, you gotta have hobbies. You have to have interests that occupy your time that you look forward to at the end of the day. If you have to go to the gym at the end of the day and that's your hobby and you're looking at it as an outlet and you're drained and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I gotta go to the gym later today. You know what? It's probably not the best hobby to have. You gotta find an activity that's really stimulating for you. So maybe you need to tweak what you're doing at the gym. Maybe you need to go to a CrossFit gym. Maybe you need to go from weightlifting to powerlifting. Maybe you need to go from powerlifting to bodybuilding. Maybe you need to start doing some different equipment at the gym, something that's going to challenge you. Maybe you need to become part of a team. So I recommend 3 different areas to focus on when managing stress. Something that's physically engaging, something that's mentally engaging, and something that is artistically engaging. So sometimes you can overlap those 3. Say a sports activity, right? So weightlifting, it's something that's a physical activity. But a sport, say hockey, baseball, whatever it is, that's something that is your mind is challenged while you're physically challenged as well. So that's something that can be both mentally stimulating and physically stimulating. Something that's artistically stimulating might be taking up painting or drawing. You're not good at painting or drawing? Well, color by numbers is something you can do. You're not very artistic? What about landscaping and gardening? Working on your yard, working in your house, redecorating something. Having a project that is artistically stimulating is just as important as the other 2. When it came to photography, I started learning photography back in 2010. I knew nothing about photography, nothing. All I knew is when you press the button, it takes a photo. I knew nothing about lighting. I knew nothing about lenses. I knew nothing about how cameras work. And I spent a long time learning and learning and learning. And then where did I learn everything? I didn't take a course. I learned it all on YouTube. I learned it all on the internet. I read as many articles from professional photographers as possible. I watched as many videos from professional photographers as possible. And they all said to learn the camera manually. Don't bother doing everything in automatic modes. Learn it manually. And when you do that, you're gonna have a better understanding of what your camera does and how to give the effects to the photos that you want. That was a hobby I took on myself, and I was so preoccupied with that hobby. It was really nice. It was a hobby I needed at the time, and it was something that I still fiddle with today. Now, there's so many different artistic hobbies you can grab, and you don't have to be good at it when you're learning it. I knew nothing. I had a good eye, but I didn't know how to take a photo. And you have to make sure to have a window of time to get all three of these things in. Now, you would think adding something extra to your schedule when you're stressed would be more stressful, but it's not, because when it's a hobby, say, here's an example, crocheting or needlepoint. That's something that you can do that is a hobby that you give yourself a challenge and a goal, and you take it up and you try and follow through with different projects. And there's always new projects to do and new challenges to do. And you always want to challenge yourself with these. So when you're doing something that's artistically stimulating, you get the sense of satisfaction. When you do something that's mentally stimulating, it calms you down. And when you do something that's physically stimulating, it sedates you. You get this sense of peace afterwards, both mentally and physically. So when's that important? When you are emotionally stressed, taking something like a mental stimulation is not maybe the best idea. So you want to have an alternate route to manage your stress. And that's where something physically stimulating to manage that emotional or mental stimulation that's getting forced upon you is a good balance. You always want to try and keep these three things in balance. If you're physically stressed throughout the day, say you just had a physically challenging day, you ever have that where you go to bed and you're exhausted from all the work you did, but you can't sleep? It's because you haven't balanced that out with any mental stimulation. It tends to work. It tends to be really good. So if you have a physically stressful day, maybe some puzzles at the end of the night is something you can do to help balance out the fact that you weren't mentally challenged throughout that physical day. So I used to have a job where I know it's an Italian guy working with cement, but that's what I was doing. I was making cement, bag cement all day long. It was a brain dead job, but boy, did I keep myself active, always thinking of new things throughout the day, just giving myself something to pay attention to while I was doing this monotonous work. And it was really good that I did that. I really enjoyed that job, but I had to keep it balanced. I had to keep my mind stimulated while I was doing a job like that. Otherwise, by the end of each day, I would have been physically exhausted and I wouldn't have felt rewarded by the end of the day. When you have a balance of these three areas to manage your stress, what happens is you find this peace, and it's like adding extra drains. All that water is coming in, and now you have an extra pump pumping some of that water out to help balance all that extra stress that's coming into your life. Now, another analogy to keep in mind is stress can sometimes be like somebody throwing eggs off a roof. That person's throwing eggs and you're the one at the bottom trying to catch them, and you're getting anxious about catching all these eggs. And sometimes the people with the eggs recruit some of their friends, and now there's a few people throwing eggs off the roof and you're trying to catch all these eggs. Well, that can be overwhelming, and it's only a matter of time until they start breaking and crashing. And what you want to do is, one, stop the guy from throwing the eggs off the roof. If you have people or things in your life that you can manage better to help eliminate some of the stress, then I recommend doing so, because stress is so difficult on the body. Having a way of managing the outlets is one thing, but you want to try and cut the stress out as much as possible. Sometimes it's the stress you have in your home. Sometimes it's the stress with work you just can't do anything about. It's part of the job. Or maybe it's some of the people at your job. Maybe you got to research how to maybe manage those people better and how to manage those stresses in your life. So when you're stressed, it messes with your hormones. It messes with your adrenal glands, with cortisol. Everything gets thrown out of whack. It's just not good for your hormones. And when your hormones are out of whack, it can throw your blood sugar out of whack, and then you're not sleeping good, and then you're not losing weight, and then you start craving junk food. So we want to try and find ways to manage this stress, new ways to manage stress, not the same old ways you've been managing stress, because if the old ways worked, you would be doing it consistently. So I want to see you picking up a mentally stimulating hobby, a physically stimulating hobby and an artistically stimulating hobby. And if you're saying that you can't draw, it's the whole point of learning a hobby is to get good at it, right? No one starts at the top. In another video, we're going to discuss more how it works on a physiological level when you're stressed out and what's happening inside under your skin. So we want to try to keep in mind, more than anything, to manage this stress. Have as little stress as we can coming into our lives, simplify our lives, as well as managing the existing stress that's in our lives different ways. Because sometimes if something's physically stressful, say you had to move or say you had to do a bunch of work to your property, you don't want to go and do exercise after that. You want to do something that's mentally or artistically challenging and stimulating to balance out the fact that you had such a physical day. So try and look at it as with that sort of a balance and see how well you do managing the stress. You may pick up some new hobbies that you may get attached to. You know it's a good hobby when you're looking forward to it at the end of the day. When you're thinking to yourself, man, I can't wait to get home and get this, and this done so that I can get to my hobby. Because when you do it, you know it's great when you do it for 2 hours and it felt like you were doing it for 20 minutes. And you're kind of bummed out when it comes to an end because you're thinking, oh man, I wish I had a little bit more time. That's when you know you got a hobby. You don't want to give yourself an extra chore through the day. You want to give yourself a hobby. I just want you to walk away with that, thinking about stress, how to manage it, what else you can do to try and manage your stress, and adding new ways of managing your stress. It won't be a burden in your life, it'll be an outlet in your life. Even though you're adding new things to your schedule, it actually lightens the load. It's really weird. So take care. This is going to involve some self-evaluation. If you have any outlets you found work for you, leave a comment. You know, it might inspire some other people to take that up. So I hope this helps. I really want you to meditate on this video and do some self-reflection. How can you manage your stress better? Take care.